Hello, Mega Zombie Man 115 here, and welcome to Mega Zombie Man Reads Creepypastas. I haven't done one of these in such a long time, and this is only the second episode. Today we'll be reading Timesplitters Limited Edition. This is obviously a Timesplitters creepypasta. Timesplitters I absolutely love, and this obviously immediately caught my attention, and I thought I'd do a reading of it. If you don't know what Timesplitters is, it's pretty much a first-person shooter game that came out for the PS2 and Xbox, which was made by Free Radical Design, who also made GoldenEye. Okay, so without further ado, let's take a look at Timesplitters 2 Limited Edition. Hello, my name is Thomas Grace, but my friends call me Tom. Like many people, I was a huge fan of the game GoldenEye 007 on the Nintendo 64. It was an incredibly revolutionary title, and I recommend all of those who haven't checked it out to do so. I am disappointed that there aren't many shooters this day and age that are in the style that GoldenEye was, so I joined a gaming forum and asked anybody if there was any game similar to GoldenEye out there gameplay wise. One of the first games that was recommended to me was Perfect Dark, but that didn't really interest me. But what caught my eye was when somebody mentioned a series called Timesplitters that was practically a spiritual successor to GoldenEye. I looked into the games and found that out of all the games in the series, Timesplitters 2 interested me most, as the screenshots of it most reminded me of the glory days of playing my copy of GoldenEye, mostly in its visual style. Sadly, I didn't really have any money to blow on such a thing, so I logged off and I decided I would look for somebody who was maybe willing to trade one of the games in my possession for Timesplitters 2. I decided to check out what I was in for. I should watch a walkthrough or let's play of Timesplitters 2. I watched the game's story mode in its entirety and it was very impressive looking, and at that point I went to sleep. The next day I woke up with a headache, most likely due to morning sickness, which is not at all pleasant. I turned on my laptop as my eyes slowly adjusted to the light. The familiar sight of the Windows 7 logo appeared on the screen, and I waited for the PC to finish booting up. Once on the desktop, I opened up Chrome and checked back on the forum I had joined last night. Apparently I had a private message from someone anonymous. It simply said, "I'm willing to give you something you won't forget." It sounded like spam, but curiosity got the better of me, so I opened it up. The message was pretty standard stuff for somebody looking to sell something, but something didn't sound quite right. Here's the transcript of the message. "Hello Tom, I'm in possession of a copy of Timesplitters 2 and I'm sending it to you as a gift, and as a warning." The last part particularly caught me off guard. I have absolutely no idea how a video game could serve as a warning. In fact, the obscurity of the threat made me laugh out loud. Who could be threatened by a video game? Another thing that is off is that the message looks like it was sent at the exact same time I logged off, although to be fair, it's probably just a coincidence. That's when the doorbell rang. I looked through the slot and saw it was the delivery guy, probably here to give me my mail. He had a box for me and I signed off for it. On the box, the words Timesplitters 2 Limited Edition for PS2 were written in Sharpie. This was odd to me for a number of reasons. One, usually people don't write the contents of a cardboard box on the box itself with huge lettering in what appears to be Sharpie. And two, if that info I got from the forum was correct, nothing called Timesplitters 2 Limited Edition existed. It was probably just a mix-up on the part of the guy who sent it, so I shrugged it off. Sometimes people just are out of it when they're tired and do things by mistake, maybe even write something by mistake. I've done it myself, admittedly. I opened up the box and it revealed what appeared to be a perfectly normal copy of Timesplitters 2 for the PS2, which for the most part confirmed my previous suspicion, that the writing on the box was simply something the sender did absent-mindedly. I took it out of the box and opened the case. Sure enough, the disc was in there. I looked at it happily, mostly because if this was anything like GoldenEye, or it looked as fun as it did in the Let's Play, this game was going to make every moment of the next few days, or even weeks, quite a bit more enjoyable. I took out and hooked up my PS2 to my TV and put the disc in the tray. It booted up to the main menu. It seemed normal, except the words Closed Beta Build 5 occupied the bottom left of the main menu. This struck me as a bit odd, but at the same time exciting, mainly because beta builds of games are rare, even more so with closed betas, for those unfamiliar with the terminology. A closed beta is a beta that is open only to the beta testers, while an open beta, or public beta as it's called in some cases, is open to a larger group that includes non-employees of the company. I pressed through to the menu for selecting things such as story, arcade, challenge, etc. What struck me as particularly odd is that it didn't ask me to name my profile, but for a beta that's normal. Pokemon Ruby's beta comes to mind, where the player was pre-named. I quickly went up and selected the story mode. The cutscene from the finished game I saw in the walkthrough was there. In fact, it looked almost normal. The graphics just looked a little less polished, as is to be expected from the beta version. It's likely they buffed up the graphics later. It was a normal thing for developers to do, so that they could buff out the bugs and gameplay tweaks first, and then work on the graphics with what time they had left. Once the cutscene was over, I selected the only choice I had unlocked, Siberia. It loaded up to reveal a level that, for the most part, looked the same as it did in the final version, a snowy military facility located near a dam. When I started up, however, I noticed a number of changes. One of them was when the cameras located around the base spotted you, instead of making the loud and annoying squeak noise they usually do, a monotone voice said, "You've been spotted," once, and then it stopped. Otherwise the cameras behaved normally. I made my way to the roof of the buildings, as you are supposed to, and I dropped into one of the storage sheds. I grabbed the mines inside and headed back out to destroy the satellite on the top of the largest building there. It was satisfying to see the satellite fly off the building and over the fence, where it landed on the snow. Unlike in the final game, as soon as the satellite was destroyed, I heard a loud bang. I looked at the small trench that you need to move through to get into the stairwell and advance. The doorway was simply destroyed. The rest of the level appeared to proceed normally until I reached the part where you release the zombies by restarting the power. Upon inserting the item needed to restore the power, a wall slid to the side as if it were a door, revealing a passageway that was not available in the final game, from the walkthrough I saw at least. I walked inside, and what I saw, while not horribly out of place, was quite unnerving. I saw a large hallway that appeared to be some kind of cell block. On every side there was locked doors. Behind them was various enemies from the game. I walked down this hallway. As I continued to walk further, the screen got darker and darker. Inside the cells, the further I got, the more desperate the characters seemed. Some of the soldiers were begging, in English, for a reason not to my understanding, as the soldiers were Russian, for me to release them. They had their weapons on the ground and were banging on the glass. Even further in, the characters weren't even alive. Some were mangled, and some were zombies. Upon the screen turning completely black, it suddenly looked normal again, brightness wise anyway. It appeared to be once more from the player's perspective, albeit I had no weapons. I was in the middle of a large rectangular room. Dried blood adorned the walls, tables with the surgical tools were lying all around the room, some next to the surgery tables with that appeared to be corpses on them. I looked around and noticed a computer terminal in the upper right corner of the room with a chair in front of it. As I approached the chair, my character proceeded to sit down without me pressing any buttons. Suddenly, a video played. I don't mean a cutscene, I mean a live action video. It appeared to be quite aged, but not too old. I guess it was taken around 1990 or so. On the screen were two surgeons in a room eerily similar to the one the character I was playing as found themselves in. They were standing next to a corpse on some kind of operating table. It was cut open and its organs were visible. Some kind of large machine was hooked up directly into the creature's heart. The creature was mostly unmoving at first, but suddenly its eyes opened and it panicked. Even though it had some leather constraints holding it to the table, it tried to move about frantically. It was making loud moans and howls that sounded like the result of terrible, terrible pain. The surgeons suddenly put down their tools and looked to the camera. They started speaking in somewhat excited tone, but I couldn't tell what they were saying, mostly because I didn't speak Russian. Even if I did, the sound of the creature moaning behind them drowned out most of what they were saying. Suddenly, the creature burst free from its constraints. It grabbed both the surgeons, using one arm to grapple each, and started viciously tearing at them with its teeth. The surgeons fell down, clearly dead from what looks of it. They went pale and limp. The creature looked at the screen before it cut out. I thought it was over, but suddenly it cut to the view of the large facility, one that looked identical to the one in the game, except it was real. I was almost sure that whatever was going on here was staged, but that's when it flashed up on the screen, only for a few moments. But it flashed on the screen several times like this, and I had a chance to copy it down. +70 star 30 degrees 36.87 plus 83 star 4 degrees 30.65. Even though I'm no expert on navigation, I recognised those as coordinates. After the coordinates has been copied, the game shut off. A power surge occurred. Once the power was back on, I was more curious than anything, so I decided I should ask my friend to check out these coordinates. Luckily they were already in Russia at this point, so I figured I might as well. They immediately agreed to help me. That's the definition of dependability right there. The agreement probably had a lot to do with me not telling them where I actually got these coordinates from. If I had told him, he'd probably brush me off and assume that I was either joking or insane, or maybe both. He told me he would message me once he got there, and he could do a voice call so that it would be easier for him to communicate and do things with his hands at the same time. It was 2 days later that I finally got invited to call with him. He started off by telling me that these coordinates there was a river and some kind of dam, surrounded by a few buildings. He mentioned that it's odd, considering that the maps did not mention such a thing. He told me that since it appeared abandoned, there was probably no harm in going inside. I heard the sound of a door opening, and then his footsteps as he manoeuvred around. He told me that the building appeared completely abandoned, yet all of the documents, furniture and even military equipment was still here. It's as if whoever left either did so in a hurry or did not actually care about what happened to the equipment, a bit careless. He said that he found some kind of control room and one of the walls there was opened, leading into the corridor. He told me that further in, the lights were dimmer. He slowly walked down the corridor, describing to me that the cells appeared to have human skeletons in them. He assured me that while this is grotesque, this kind of thing wasn't unusual, especially during the time of the Soviet Union. He continued walking and told me that it had gone completely dark and he had came to what felt like a door. As soon as he said that, I heard the sound of a door opening. He let out a hearty chuckle. This reassured me that he knew what he was doing. He told me that the lighting in here was dimmer, but at least better than in the hallway. I heard his footsteps as he apparently walked deeper into the room. Then I heard a loud moan and howl. And the call ended. And that's it for Timesplitters 2 Limited Edition. What did I think of it? I honestly thought it was actually quite good and interesting. I mean, it almost sounded like it was going to be a bit of a cliched story, but I mean, I had to look at it. I mean, it was Timesplitters. I absolutely loved that game, and it was kind of weird to see a Timesplitters creepypasta. But yeah, I really liked the story and how the whole like Siberia level is actually based on a real event where very bad things happen. Sort of reminds me of this Russian sleep experiment. So yeah, pretty much the whole story was a guy wanted a copy of Timesplitters, which, because it reminded him of GoldenEye, he ended up getting, I'd admit, the whole getting a dodgy version thing was a bit cliched, but it kind of turned it around, so it didn't seem too, like, annoying to read. But pretty much, he gets some sort of beta version from what we heard, and then upon playing it, the Siberia level was all different, and was also based on the proper event that we see later on. And upon getting the coordinates throughout the game, he gets one of his friends in Russia to check out this place, which, what's left of it, is still up there. And of course, whatever that experiment thing was, from what we can imagine, killed that guy. And that's something I thought was kind of weird, was the ending was a bit anticlimactic, but it ends in such a way that you want more. Like, what happened? Did he die? Or who knows? But overall, I actually quite liked the story. I mean, probably just because it's Timesplitters. I mean, come on. But yeah, overall, I quite enjoyed it. I hope you liked it as well. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.